Hello everybody, it's King of Koopas here, and we're back for some more RollerCoaster Tycoon Deluxe. When we last left off, I was just giving off a few basic tips on how to start a successful park. It was pretty shitty, but I am probably going to repeat a lot of it once we go back into the actual park aspect. So anyhow, for this part, I'm going to turn sound back on, and we're going to go back to Forest Frontiers for a sec here. Turn sound back on, and we're going to get into basically how finances work, because money is probably the most important thing in this game besides your objective. Because in this game, if you go beyond 0, you're in the red. You can still play, but you won't be able to do anything. You won't be able to build anything. You'll pretty much be at a standstill, and you'll only have what you actually built to work with. Let me just turn grid lines back on. So as you can see, there's a lot to finances and how to manage your money. So let's start it back. So first off, every month is going to have the total. It's going to have the totals for everything. So let's start off with ride construction. This is a self-explanatory ride construction. As you build rides, this is going to decrease. Like it's going to go minus 10,000. Like if you built a $10,000 roller coaster right off the bat, which I have no clue why you would. That's going to go up, and this is going to say minus 10,000 because you've lost $10,000 in that year. Ride running costs. This is one I never got as a kid, but basically, as every ride is going, it costs money to keep the ride going. Pay the staff that run and whatnot. And this is pretty much just going to, show how much money is being spent on actually running the rides. Then this land purchase is self-explanatory. That's purchasing land. Landscaping is pretty much just as it sounds. Sorry about that. That's pretty much self-explanatory. It's just landscaping. Like if you wanted to remove a tree here, or you wanted to I don't know, build a pathway or raise the land, stuff like that, that's all going to go into the landscaping and basically tell you how much you've done. Park entrance tickets. This is the first example of of money being gained. This is basically going to tell you how much money you've made a month from just park entrance tickets. Like if you see right here, this is just an example. We'll go into that in a sec. And then ride tickets, I'll show you that. This will go shop sales, all this, show you how much money you've made from shops. Shop stock, that is pretty much like, yeah, it says shop stock. That's how much money is being spent to get the stock in to the actual thing. That's gonna be another one of those negatives. Then we got food and drink sales and stock, same thing. Staff wages is how much you're paying your staff. Marketing is how much you've spent on marketing, which we'll get into in a sec. Research is how much money you're being thrown into research every month or so. And then loan interest, which is pretty much, the interest of your loan. We'll get into that in a sec. Alrighty, so pretty much how this so pretty much how the loan works here. It's pretty much you start out with $10,000 normally, but you can increase it. Like in this case, it's different for everything, but I can increase it to 10,000. This is going to increase your loan interest. Now this can go up pretty high, but I've never ever found it a problem whatsoever. So yeah, just max out your loan and just don't go wild. Still be smart about your money, but don't be stuck at 10,000, because you can't do a whole lot with 10,000 unless you plan strategically, and that's no fun. Alright, so that's pretty much it. Next up, we have the cash less loan, which is pretty much our company value. And basically, it's raining again. So pretty much this is how much money you have minus the loan. So let's say you made something like your original loan was $5,000 and then you made $10,000. So according to this, your company value would be it would be $5,000 because you made $10,000 but $5,000 in loans, so that's the overall money that you've made. This isn't really important at all. This is just kind of like for a high score, so don't really concern yourself too much with this. Park value. This one's really hard to explain, but basically this is like, the value of your park. It goes up and down depending on what you do. Like, if you make rides and whatnot, that's going to go up. If you just sit around and do nothing, don't add anything new, then the park value is going to go down. Some parks later in the game are going to have park value instead of like, guess and rating. And we'll get into park value a little more when we get into that, but for the time being, don't worry about this. This is basically, this is your weekly profit, which is pretty much showing you how much you make, make in the a week or a month, however you want to call it. And it's pretty much just gonna, oh, sorry. And that's pretty much, you know, it's going to tell you if you're making money every week or you're losing money. In this case, I'm losing money because I haven't done anything yet. And then finally, we have the marketing campaigns, which is pretty much you can take money on a weekly basis, and you can go ahead and start a campaign, and that'll get more people into the park. And it can be either really rewarding or it can be really devastating. It really just depends on how much money you have, how good the park is. Pardon me, stuff like that. Alright, so I was waiting for the rain to stop. Okay, so let's just pretend that we are starting the park here, and just don't do this. Don't just go ahead and pick this and just like, oh, I want to build the biggest coaster in the entire game and build this. And look, we're already down half of our money. And you have to be really careful when planning for something, you know, like a roller coaster, because you charge money for it, yes, and you may think, oh wow, something like this would make tons of money, but you have to really think about it. When you include the staff wages, the running cost, you know, the fact it only holds one train per car and each ride's about a minute long, when you really think about it, this thing isn't going to pay for itself very quickly. It'll pay for itself eventually, but it's going to take a very, very long time, especially with a park that's just starting out. Let me just trash this. So yeah, you have to be careful when you're building. Start small, get a little money going, and then move up to the bigger rides. That being said, don't be afraid to build a coaster right off the bat. Just don't build it the biggest one you can find. Read into it, look at the approximate cost, and plan accordingly to make sure you don't go broke. Like for example, for this park, I'd start out, you know, something simple like, you know, a gentle ride like a merry-go-round. You just go from there. Be very strategic. Alright, next up we're going to talk about pricing and actually making money. And you may think, oh, that's easy, I just make rides, charge money, and make money. Well, no, there's a lot of planning. First of all, there's a variety of ways you can actually run the park. Like, for example, you can do it like some parks do. You can make the admissions money, a lot of money, and then make the rides free. You can make the admissions free and make the money, make the vehicles, make the rides cost money, or you could do a little mixture of both. And this is where it really gets interesting, because you can charge different amounts of money based on what combination you use. Let's say we decided, for the sake of the argument, that we just wanted to make it so the park entrance was all that it costed. If that was the case, then you can charge a lot of money to get into the park, but because the rides are free, so you pay once and all the rides are free. The guests can go on them as many times as they want. But that means that the park, that your park entrance fee is going to be your main source of income, and as such, you can jack it pretty high, even if you don't have much. But you're going to have to experiment a little bit. There's no definitive answer for that, because I've never done that, because I think it's kind of a stupid thing to do. But yeah, if you did, okay. Second of all, you actually have to do this in some parks, so this is more important. You decide to make the entrance ticket free. So now, this is a little bit of an interesting thing you can do. So you may think, wow, how much money can I charge? Well, if you were considering that the park entrance fee is free, you can charge a lot more for the rides than you could normally, like if the park entrance fee was actual money. So let's example, let's just take a random coaster. I'm just building this just to show you. I'll just show this now. Let's just pretend we actually knew what we were doing here, and we built this, and we can actually see the intensity rating, which is about 5.90. And normally, what you can roughly do is you can charge based on either the intensity or the excitement. I don't remember which one it is, but like say the intensity rating is like say 5, you could charge roughly like maybe $4 or $5 if the park entrance fee is free. That's normally how I go about it, and if it doesn't work, just lower it until you find a good price. And then next up is going to be the most common. What you're going to be doing here is doing a mixture of both, and that is where things get really interesting, because it's really hard to accommodate, because you have to find just the right balance. Like for example, if we build this and say $1, okay, that's fine for now. But later on, as we start jacking up prices for this to make more money, and you know the rides become old and dated, you have to take into account that people are going to start to be wanting to pay less for everything. So that pretty much means if you do it that way, it's the most rewarding way to make money, but it's also the hardest, as you have to keep adjusting prices and keeping up with what your guests are saying, because you have to find a right balance of how much you're charging to get in and how much you're charging for each ride. And guests will let you know if it's too cheap or if it's too expensive. So it's really hard to find just the right balance. Alright, next up here we just got research. I thought I should bring into play here before I forget. With research, you generally just want to max it out to fund. $400 a month is nothing. If you know what you're doing, even in the first month you can make that back easily. And generally what you want to do, like, you want to get the information kiosk first, like I said in my other video. So just forget about all this, just shut off and just do kiosks. Shelves installs until you get the information kiosk, then you can shut it off and go back to general rides and whatnot. Or if you want scenery or ride improvements, whatever you want to do. Just remember, you're not going to get every ride and whatnot in the game. It's different for each park what rides you're going to get and in what order. Alrighty, so I think that for the most part should wrap up. Just a few other things. If you want to see how much everything costs, you can see it all in here in rides and attractions. Like for example, that scared me there. Like for example, you can see here it costs $460 here to build a merry-go-round. $300. When it comes to roller coasters, because you can make custom designs, it can be a little more. Like this is just the approximate cost to build like an average coaster or whatnot. You really want to pay attention to how much money you're spending as coasters get expensive. It's the same for everything. You just see how much it all costs. Also, if you want to look here, if you go to your staff wages, you can also see how much each costs. Like for example, a mechanic costs $55 per month each, and you can go ahead and just plan for that accordingly. But normally staff wages aren't a problem, at least I find. Is this working yet? There we go. I just wanted to show that that's working now. Alrighty, and then other than that, I think that's it. I think those are the important part. Let's see here. Am I missing anything? Well, I think you probably want to know like a little bit about landscaping. Like it took me a really long time to do, but I'll go into that when we actually start Forest Frontiers. Cause yeah, it's not that important. I'm sure you could probably figure it out by yourself. So yeah, let me just mute this and go back to the main menu. Don't save. And yeah, I think that's it for this part. That's pretty much the basics of the finances of how this game works. And I think in the next part we got one more tutorial before we begin Forest Frontiers, and that's going to be actually building roller coasters, because there is a lot of science behind building roller coasters, and they can either make you or break you. And yeah, that's it. I thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.